We're trying to figure out how to do things remotely. It's one thing I know about aviation is you cannot fly remotely. So you guys were sitting at home. So let's hear a little bit about the story. Maybe we'll start with you and kind of give us the background of how you got started, because it's really quite fascinating.
Yeah. So Adam and I both work for the same airline. It's Major Airline Canada, and yeah, we were kind of watching the news start rolling in between late February and early March, and it was looking more and more dire. And then we went from having probably the best jobs of our lives and enjoying life and flying happy people down to southern destinations into Europe to basically flying all over the world empty and bringing back some very worried Canadians. We did that for several weeks. But it's basically took part in a very large air repatriation of Canadians back to Canada. And then our reward, as it were, was pink slip April 1st of 2020. Basically, at that point, about 90% of the world's airline fleet was grounded. There's no flying. So, we went from having a very in-demand job to having no job. And Adam had just purchased a bakery with his ex-wife in Guelph called With the Grain. And so I ended up helping them out, just being...
So you had the bakery with your ex-wife. You guys are doing, and you started having the conversation. How did that conversation go? You got the hired help here. Who's your friend? But how take it from there? How did you kind of get it up and running?
Yeah, Steve was just a friend helping out. He was never like.
Yeah, they didn't pay me.
he ate.
Yeah, he ate the bribe.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, Steve was actually contemplating a different career pivot. And I went over to Steve's house one night to talk him out of it and to drain his whiskey collection. And so we're in Steve's backyard. And I can't remember how many whiskeys into the evening we were. And I said, Steve, I think this is a good idea for you. And he's like, well, what else should I do? And out of my mouth, with zero forethought or planning, I just said, let's start a business. That was the whiskey talking via my mouth. And Steve said, okay, doing what? He said, well, everyone else in Guelph seems to be brewing beer, so why don't we roast coffee? And so we batted around a bunch of ideas. And Steve had the name Lost Aviator in his mind for another business that he was doing. And so he said, let's call it Lost Aviator. And I'm just like, bingo, perfect. And so that night, we were kind of on our every successive whiskey was kind of hashing out the business plan. By the end of the night, we had the business plan that we actually have been executing for the last 4 years.
Yeah, it hasn't really changed much from that.
I mean, I unsurprisingly, I think lots of entrepreneurs' businesses come from a night with a good friend thinking about something they might like to do, or that's they've always had a lifelong dream of doing something, but never quite had the the moons didn't align for it to happen. COVID produced that opportunity for you, and there were some opportunities that came out of COVID. Obviously, there was a lot of bad that came with that, but there have been some success stories. Yours is one of them. So, and many entrepreneurs don't have a straight path. Yours wasn't a straight path. You're both pilots. As COVID happens. But you're in your career, what kind of helped you prepare for your current venture? Like, I mean, being a small business owner and doing all the things from logistics to front of house to doing the manufacture, the preparation of your beans and the coffee side. I mean, what in being pilots prepared you for that?
Well, I have this conversation with fellow pilots all the time that there's a lot of soft skills you learn from being in aviation that you don't even realize you have. And especially Adam and I, both as captains at our respective airline, we do a lot of people management. You do a lot of risk assessment. You've got to interact with different people, suppliers, etc. Like different. It's a very people focused job, but it's also very technically challenging, and it's something you need to really dive into. So following, writing SOPs, developing training programs. We both have got a pretty strong training background in aviation as well. So all those soft skills did come together, and they really exceptionally helped us, I would say. And it's skills I didn't realize I had. That I always thought, I have one life skill. I can fly an airplane, and that's it. And I didn't really. It took starting a business to really realize that, hey, all the things that go into creating someone who can fly an airplane and all the skills that come along with that and all the ancillary skills, they do translate into business, believe it or not. And it's been we developed our SOPs when we first learned how to roast because we taught ourselves how to roast.
Yeah.
And
I think that's important is that many and for people watching this, is many of them could be entrepreneurs because they have skills, as you rightfully point out, that they don't even put on the list of things that they know how to do themselves. And if you don't know it and aren't telling that story or convincing yourself, what else? So what are build on that? What are some of the things that got you? Because you had already before COVID had a bakery and you were kind of going down that entrepreneurial journey. What made you what were the things that got you thinking about doing that before COVID, and then what skills that really added to your ability to be successful?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll just build a little bit on what Steve said, and I guess it's the realization that what's brought you to your career point now is very translatable. So you look at a pilot's you get into an aluminum tube full of jet fuel and blast into the stratosphere at near supersonic speeds. You got to be an optimist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
interesting.
You got to rely on other team members. But I mean, you communicate, you make decisions, and you evaluate outcomes. And I mean, is there more to business? Really? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and one famous saying from a very famous aviator is, if you're going to crash, you fly it as far into the crash as possible. And we are definitely living.
Yeah. No, it's really a very translatable thing, and you just have to kind of realize it, I guess, and say that you can do it, and go with a can-do attitude. I mean, we learn nonstop in aviation, and that's a required skill in, as you know, any industry.
Yeah,
lifelong learning.
Yeah. Well, continuous. I mean, you have to do it as a pilot. Everything's changing. There's new technologies. There's new aircraft coming out. You got to be recertified, and it's no different. I mean, whether it's coffee, beer, EV vehicles, or take your pick, anything in agriculture. I mean, the new technologies, the new innovations are make us all have to be lifelong learners. Listen, this is BDC Small Business Week. That's why we're doing this series with a series of entrepreneurs. The theme this year is the power of small, defying the odds. And although small businesses are resilient, that by their very nature, and you just touched on it, you have to be. You have to be an optimist. You have to be a problem solver. You have to, kind of know what you don't know and get help, but be able to lean into the things you don't know as well. Small businesses face challenges each and every day. Whether COVID was probably the most obvious because it was right in your face, but every day a small business faces challenges. So share some of the challenges you've faced recently. Interest rates, cost of doing business. I mean, we've had some challenges and headwinds, and how you've overcome those challenges over the last couple of years.
Challenges. I mean, we've got regularly we're getting equipment that needs servicing, little mechanical things. Those are pretty minor. The people learning the landscape of human resources, accounting, all those skills that we don't have. I would say that's a major deficit for people coming from a technical background into a general business environment. All those hard skills that we don't have would be things that you have to learn. And it's just, I guess that's a challenge. And there's a time element to learning that. And there's a time restriction to Steve and I's life due to our jobs and what our day jobs require of us. I've got kids, and Steve's got a house full of dogs and other hobbies, which, also demand our time.
Absolutely.
And so those definitely play at our ability to our resiliency and our day-to-day abilities.
Yeah, I mean, I'll build on that as well. I mean, there's so many things when you get into a business you just don't know. And I remember when we first launched, we were tenacious. We had nothing else to do, obviously, because the world was shut down. But we kind of threw ourselves headlong into it. We would meet an obstacle and we just figured out how to get over it. And a lot of the obstacles we found were government regulation, dealing with all that stuff. They had to deal with the Ministry of the Environment. We had no idea. Like, you go on the website and try and type on, like, what do we need for coffee roasting, and there's no help available.
Yeah.
So you have to start making phone calls, and just, you don't know, and just figuring it all out. We're dealing with a road closure in front of our major cafe for the third year in a row. Well, the year we moved in, it was supposed to be just that summer, and then it would be done. Then last year, it was supposed to be, no, just this summer. We're done. And then now we're on our third summer, and it's really taken a hit on our business. So we had to get creative. How do we market? How do we stay relevant? And how do we present a negative in a positive way? Because we don't want to be out there sounding negative. Like, we just, we've got to roll with the punches, keep it positive, keep it light, and have fun with it, and kind of poke fun at your own situation, which is kind of the approach we've taken. And thus far, I think it's been successful for us.
So, and you think you both touched on this, is successful entrepreneurs by definition are resourceful. You're open to collaborate with partners. You got to hire the right staff and the right people to help you run the business. And you touched on it. It's like not knowing some of those soft things like HR or finance. I mean, they didn't hire me to do the job I'm doing because I know finance. I'm not a CFO. That's not my expertise. I know how to view those things at a general level, but I hire an expert in that to run this because that's not my area of expertise. So when you face a big challenge, or so you come across something, what does that network of partners look like, or connections that have helped you? Because every time I talk to someone, it's like, geez, when I ran into something, someone was always, if I asked a question, more often than not, another successful business owner or a friend or someone that I've run into was more than happy to give you some advice. And you have the partners you have, whether it's your legal advisor, your financial advisor, your banking advisor. Talk about the network that has helped you be successful, Adam.
Yeah, well, I mean, geez, we owe so much to our mentors and people that have helped us, and without that we couldn't have started.
Mm-hmm.
So we had help. Steve actually met somebody in a coffee community online who really took us under his wing when we started, to show us the ropes of roasting coffee. Steve's mother is an accountant/bookkeeper, so she helped us enormously. Had space in the basement with the grain, which helped us enormously. That business was our first and still it's our most important customer. So we had help there. We had great legal people, accounting people. I mean, really through and through. And so, it's been fantastic. And our neighbors, physical neighbors, to the online community, and
I guess it's one of the things, Steve, and I hear this from entrepreneurs all the time. Yes, you got to pay, or you have to have expertise anyway. Sometimes you got to pay for that legal advice or that financial advice, but asking a question and saying, how would you do this, is lots of people are prepared to give you that, to give the wisdom that they have as a pay it forward. But they've been successful. They benefited from others that were in your shoes, or what are your shoes as you're learning. Asking for help is a big, I mean, that's a skill that we sometimes, some of us don't do quickly enough. Did you do a lot of asking for help and for advice and for the wisdom of other
100%. I think a lot of people, maybe they don't feel good admitting that, hey, I don't have the answer to this. And I don't know, I think it comes from an aviation background. Like, put your hand up if you're not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not sure how to land the airplane in third condition, then you should probably find that out before you try and do it. I mean, that's kind of generalizing. But for us, we're both pretty shameless, and we've had great mentors. And as soon as you put your hand up and say, hey guys, in a small community, like I met a guy through, I have a vintage car, and I met a gentleman through my vintage car community. And he's become one of our great mentors and friends. And he's connected us with so many people. And you find that the community finds you. And,
Yeah.
and in the business community, other business people, like we can comfortably walk in almost any business, just put our hand up, say, hey, we own a business as well, love to work with you or whatever, love to have your perspective on something, and vice versa. Like we've had other people want to start coffee roasting businesses come and talk to us. We've paid that forward because people helped us.
Yeah.
I think that's, and if you put out positivity in the world and you want to collaborate, even if there's, say, a competitor, you earn it back in spades. And so we took a lot of advantage of other people's expertise. Like my parents both ran a very successful business for 42 years. So my father and my mother have been great mentors to both of us and very helpful. And they've had their perspectives. And then other business owners the same. And there's lots of assistants out there. A lot of people want to see you succeed.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, whether it's at your local chamber, the Communitech, if you're in the tech space, the small business center, there is a litany of folks that are there to help. And invariably they have those mentors that can pay it forward.
Everyone's got a guy.
Yeah, everyone. It's true. Everyone has and needs to have someone they can rely on. And sometimes it's hearing the honest talk too, right? Of geez, you really messed that up, and you really need to go back and fix it. Listen, it leads on to in Small Business Week. If there's an entrepreneur or a small business listening today, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs looking to start up or to take their business that they have, to scale up their business in the community? Because those are, there's probably still lots of folks that may have been in your shoes but didn't have COVID-19 that said, I got no choice now. What are some of the advice you'd give to that entrepreneur to kind of take that next step? Adam?
I was hoping you'd ask Steve first.
Okay, Steve. Friend. I'm Steve.
I'm the chatty Cathy up there, I've been told. It's an excellent question. I'd say when you make the decision to jump, be tenacious and do it. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I said there's a lot. Sometimes people get bogged down in their own pride and their own maybe hubris to a degree. And, we're both guilty of this as well at times. And I come at it humbly and look for mentors if you can. And those people that want to see you succeed and help you succeed, they're out there. And honestly, when you commit to it, do it.
And maybe just to follow up on that, I mean, having immediate success there are very few, take your pick, baseball players, businesses, whatever, professional athletes who suddenly get out there and wow, they're the instant success. And without having gone through the ups and downs, and you get to another level, and it's just orders of magnitude. You talk about being tenacious and sort of going forward. Is that part of it? Is that you can't let that first roadblock derail you from saying, like, you have to figure out. Yeah. We talked about earlier. Yeah. How do you get her over, around, under the obstacle that's coming? Is that what you're getting at?
100%. Yeah. I mean, we started off with, we launched with immediate success, I would say, which is highly abnormal in the industry. And then we, as any business does, we made a few errors along the way, and we learned from them. And we will acknowledge that was a mistake. That lost us a pile of money. How to recover from it, activate on that plan, and move on. And don't sit here and dwell on it. Don't like we had to shut down a shop last year. And, I was getting messages from people the day that we announced it saying, I'm so sorry. And I thought, I feel relieved. Like, I finally made the decision that we have to. And it's fine. Like, it'll be fine. We know we'll pull out of this and we'll get over it. We'll move on. And we'll take from the experience. I don't even regret the experience. We learned a lot from it.
So, Adam, is that sort of the zig and zag of what business is? Like, there's no straight line. It's like, here's our plan. Here's where we're going to get to. I mean, what it sounds like you guys are describing is you had your starting point, your goal, and you're going, okay. But a lot of times we got, oh, geez, here we went left, we went right. It's never, I mean, my experience in anything is it's never a straight line.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And just to kind of to loop back there, I think, I just put some thought into your last question. I think having people learning to trust people is really important. You got to work to scale. You got to work on your business, not in your business. And there's a point, and it's never clear when that point is. Yeah. Right. It's not like Steve and I got a roast and bag grown coffee all night in Christmas of 2020, right? In Christmas of 2024, we have a team of people that do that. and we employ them. So how do we pull ourselves out of the business to, to be more the business brains, inspiration, that sort of thing? That's kind of a point, and that comes with, I think, trust and knowing when to extricate yourself from things.
Letting go is tough.
Yeah, and you know what? For entrepreneurs, if you're passionate about the business, you like to work in the business because it's what you love about it.
Right.
Growing a business is working on the business, which is who are the partners I have to have? What are the how do I finance better? How do I get more profit on a bottom line? And those are not things you can do.
And that's literally where we are in our business journey. Like we were business operators for better part of 3 years, and in the last, I'd say 6 to 8 months, we made the transition to business owners, and that's a whole new skill set for us, and we're figuring it out as we go.
So this is. I mean, there's a good pivot to your relationship with BDC. Of course, they're great partners of us at the chamber. Because we know that they're their tagline, Canada's only banks exclusively for entrepreneurs, because they're designed for smaller entrepreneurs. Their risk profile is different, but some of the things that they have, which I think are fascinating. I want to ask you both about your relationship with BDC. Is they have a tremendous amount of advisory services that are either low or no cost that can be very helpful for. And we've done this before with entrepreneurs saying, "Hey, we need to do a better business plan, or we need to get some financing. What do we do?" They also finance different aspects that a commercial bank may not be able to because of risk profile. So, thinking about your relationship with BDC, how have they supported the venture along the way? Because there's probably points where you BDC and then they're away, and over 4 years you probably had some you maintain the relationship, but it will be more intense or more intentional or more focused from time to time. Adam?
Well, our relationship with BDC has been fantastic, and one thing that has been really appreciated by Steve and I is the fact that we can talk to them, I think, on a level that they understand. We have our rep in the room with us today, and she takes an interest in the business, and she listens to our plan, and it really feels like they're engaged with us to a degree that the major banks weren't. And they seem to view more the risk side of our business rather than the opportunity, which I think having the personal relationship with you, kind of seeing the opportunity better than.
And I think that's by design. That's why BDC was set up, is to be more, have a risk profile that says they're going to support that entrepreneur. Not. I mean, big banks have their own responsibilities under the Banking Act that they can't be as flexible and but I do think that having both the personal relationship on the banking side or the money side, but also the advisory services have been, because when you work with them and say, "Hey, look, what's your new business plan look like? What are your pro formas moving forward? What does your next 5 years look like? What are your capital needs going to be? What are your growth?" Those things are things that are invaluable for especially a younger business. You're 4 years old. Happy birthday!
Yeah, today.
But you have to plan for each stage along the way, and BDCs can be a part of that.
And Lauren from BDC, I mean, she put us in the room with you today. So I mean, if that doesn't speak, I mean,
we've got a cheerleader. Basically, someone, not just someone who loaned us money and taking interest rate and just wants to see return on investment. We got someone who actually seems pops by our business and buys coffee once in a while, and and actually wants us to succeed. So that's great. Knowing, the big thing in business is knowing that people have your back, and I feel like we have that with BDC. And it's just been we dealt with a lot of banks, and then dealing with BDC was just night and day. It was refreshing, to be honest.
And I just for those watching, BDC it's not a replacement for you. You still have to have your traditional bank for many of your day-to-day transactions, but BDC is very complementary to what your traditional bank, and they actually work together quite closely. As whoever your traditional banking is, BDC will work with them and say, "Hey, how can we make this work?" And that to me is where they're not really competitors. It's really having both sides focus on how to make your business more successful. Listen, and I have to ask the question. You got pilots in the chairs here. You literally look at everything from 40,000 feet. You're up at or 36, wherever, depending on which way you're going. But you're flying and you're at 40,000 feet. Take a little step back and say, where do you want the business to be in 5 or 10 years? I mean, in some respects, say, geez, I don't know, that 10 years is a long way out. It comes hurtling up at you pretty close or pretty quick. But in the next 5 or 10 years, where do you see the business going, and how are you going to plan for that? So let's see, where do you think it's going to go?
I think any business plan is a living document, and it will change. And our core business plans remain most of the same, but we've discussed this back and forth. Where do we see ourselves in 1 year, 2 year? Right now, we're working on a 1 year time frame. We want to grow our wholesale and our online, and really kind of fill that gap out in our sales and grow the business that way. Kind of grow into our shoes. We had large expansion last year. 5 years, I'd like to see us with a very robust online wholesale business. I'd like to see us in some major markets. For us, we want to build on the brand. Right now, we've got a very high quality coffee. We were recently voted Guelph's best coffee. And we're really proud of that. But we want to stay on course with that. We want to keep the quality of what we're producing, and grow brand awareness and grow the brand. And so basically, growth is essentially it. It's kind of a vague conversation. Like, do I see growth into more retail outlets? We've got 2 right now, or do I see growth more on the back end where we just provide wholesale? You can go both ideally, but that's kind of the inflection point for us. We're just growing into this next phase of our business. So to give you a concise answer,
that's interesting. As they say, retail needs marketing because you need people to know about you. Mm-hmm. If you're going on the back end, it's Lost Aviator. It's less the branding part that it or could be. Mm-hmm. But that's also why you need experts and your partners to be saying which way you're going, and if you're going to do both, how much time do you put in. But so the 5 year question is less about but it's envisioning where are you going to put your time in the next year, 18 months, 2 years. You ain't getting to where you are in 5 years without what you're doing in the short term. So you're still focused on that. But that 5 years, is it to, like some do it on sales and say, geez, I want to be a $5 million business in 5 years. Like they measure it either in gross sales, or like there's lots of ways to measure what it looks like. But it seems to me like this is a passion for both of you. It's something that you want to still keep hands on. So is that part of it? Is that part of the plan over 5 or 10 years? Is that this is what, when you retire from flying, that this is going to be what you want to do for the rest of your working career?
Yeah, I think so. Steve and I think we've committed to the short-term plan, which I would say would be inside of 5 years. So exactly what Steve mentioned is our plan. Mm-hmm. And then I think we're going to see where life is for us and make decisions based on where we want to go with it. Because obviously, like it was nothing until we created it, and it will become what we need it to become. And, these businesses do take on a life of their own, and there are people that become engaged with it and invested in it. But nonetheless, we're going to see how it goes, whether that means more cafes, whether that means more a cracking website and fantastic merchandise that goes in a different direction. Steve and I have talked about using Lost Aviator's brand as a retirement lifestyle to do coffee-based tourism with our own airplane. And we've talked about doing reality TV shows and YouTube channels. And so our ideas have just been fast and furious. And so right now we're committed to just getting the business really robust and healthy. And I think you got to get your business really healthy and your finances really strong to make your next move from a position of strength. And that's what we're working towards.
Well, you know what? There isn't a business that is front facing, isn't successful, that isn't looking at where are you online, doing into different market segments of what you're doing. So that's unsurprising that you'd start to look at those things while growing the business. Listen, as part of you committed to answering my rapid fire questions. I ask these of every person that comes on the podcast, because it's really, yes, it's about your business journey, but it's also about leaders. You're both leading an organization. You know, not only lead your planes when you're captaining, but you're leaders of your own business. And so these questions are ones that I always find fascinating because everyone has a different view of these questions. So I'll start with you, Adam, and we'll quickly go through these. What would you, as you look back on your life, not necessarily business, but because this could be a life lesson, could be business lesson. So you look back in your life, what would you tell your younger self if you could give some advice?
I think I'd tell young Adam everything's going to be fine. Yeah, you're good. You got this, and you don't need any sort of financial goalpost to hit. You just everything will be okay. Um, have more confidence in yourself to do what you believe you can do, and always push yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone.
It's great advice. I think we all are self-conscious in one way, shape, or form, no matter what we're doing. Steve?
For me, fairly similar to Adam. I would just say it will come. Be patient. You know, we always look. I have a tendency of looking where I'm not at in my stage of life. I was really self-critical, and now I'm like,
That's interesting. I think actually, thinking back on the interview I did with, or the podcast I did with Pierre, I think he did the same thing. He said, "Don't be in a rush to get through.
No.
You learn from every stage of your life, whether you're."
And the journey is actually the best part. Honestly, like I've done so many. You know, Adam and I met in Calgary almost 20 years ago, and flying small airplanes into the northern Alberta and BC. Opatch, northern BC, you name it. We've been all over, and you know, everyone's like at those jobs. They said, "No, I want to get the airline. I want to fly the big jet." You know what? I had so much fun doing that, and I look back on it with a sense of pride, but also a sense of accomplishment. I did some pretty awesome stuff.
Well, you know, one of the things is it's a good point. What's for sure is none of us are getting out of this thing alive. So you better enjoy the journey along the way, because if you're always looking at the road ahead, you're missing and that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, everyone takes lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Some are personal lessons. Some of them are, you know, it could be from business. It could be, you know, from sports. What's the greatest lesson you've learned over your life?
For my life?
Yeah, well, our business. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Some of us learn from other things, like your connection to family or your involvement in community. What's the greatest lesson you've learned?
I'd say one thing I've learned, I think I've really come to fruition in the last 4 years, is remain grounded in your community, with your family, with your friends, with your business partner, who's sometimes your friend, sometimes you're not. But no, just remain grounded. I one thing as a pilot, and I know Adam can sympathize with this, our lifestyle is away. We're never really in one place. And I've moved around a lot in my career. You know, Guelph's home for me, but I was gone for many years. Came back, but even when I came back, I was still gone. I was flying to Rome or London or, you know, someplace in South America, and I was never really present. And it took starting a business and the pandemic for me to really force me to be in my community, Guelph, and which I love my hometown. It's great. And now I find it's so refreshing now that I can, like, my dad was a business person in Guelph for many years, and my dad knows everybody, and everyone knows my dad. And now I go to the market downtown to get some food, and I run into 3 people I know I met through the business. And it's just like having that community, grounding in the community, grounding yourself in your own community. It's and with your family. Like, I'm very close to my family and stuff like that. My wife, my 3 dogs. Like, you know, taking that time and being grounded, I think is it's incredibly uplifting and
well, and it builds on that one. Be present, because and the journey.
Adam? Biggest lesson, I think, is for me, I think trust your internal compass. You've got your own values that you know, probably I don't know if it's there by your parents or your teachers or if it's your DNA. I don't know, but you know, there's a reason why when you find a wallet on the sidewalk, you look for the rightful owner to return it instead of grab the cash and run. You know, and in business, you know, having ethics is really, really important.
Absolutely.
And treating people well. I mean, it's kind of your core values, but it's also the best way to do business. I mean, if you're a trustworthy, honest person, people trust your products, and people trust you as a partner. And so, just translating your core values into your business.
I think it's one of those age old. It's just true. Is people like doing business with people they like. And it's hard to. It's not hard. It's impossible to fake authenticity because the people will eventually ferret it out. So that internal compass of who you are and how you live your life, but also run your business, really important. Okay, last one, and then we'll let you get on. There's probably some beans that are coffee beans that are burning somewhere in Guelph. Mm-hmm. Who or what inspires you, Adam?
What I would say, travel inspires me. There's all sorts of inspirational people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I'd say, to put one thing, the reason is probably too numerous to list. You see beautiful places, you meet amazing people, you learn stuff. So I'd say travel is my most inspirational.
That's great.
I'm going to echo Adam on the travel part because I think it's one of the best ways to realize you're in a very much smaller world than you believe. But for me, I grew up idolizing a lot of aviators, people from the past who took great risks to push forward aviation. Obviously, I'm a pilot through and through. It's what I want to do since I was 6. So I look at a lot of people, especially in like the golden age, which is what our company is themed about, who navigate around the world with nothing more than an astral compass, and a magnetic compass, and they open up the world. And that kind of sense of adventure and pioneerism in a very, very new industry, being aviation, was only like 30, 40 years old at the time, and taking a lot of risk doing it. That kind of adventurous spirit is what kind of inspires me.
Well, thank you so much for both of you, Adam, Scott, Steve, for being here today. You're passionate about flying and you're passionate about Lost Aviator Coffee. I really appreciate you walking us through your journey. I think it's important for other entrepreneurs to hear from successful entrepreneurs, but also not just their successes, but those dips and doodles and the ups and downs that everyone has if you're in business. And so thank you for sharing some of your wisdom and paying it forward for the entrepreneurs that will be watching this and looking and understanding the value that BDC can bring to them and their startup and their new entrepreneurial business. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, and thanks once again to our title sponsor, Manulife, and our presenting sponsor, BDC, and to our supporting sponsor, the Immigration Partnership of Waterloo Region.